Dear students, I welcome you all to this session. Today, in this session, we are going to see about Sanskritization and Westernization. Students, have you heard the term Sanskritization and Westernization? Many a times people say that the younger generation has been attracted more by the developed countries, and they say looks like the Western world has come here. So, what does Sanskritization and Westernization mean? I'd like to quote Mr. Harold Galt in his own words. An attempt has been made to show that there may be a dynamic interplay between the processes of Sanskritization and Westernization, which may help us to account for such seeming anachronisms as the high castes who have had the greatest shake in the old order, revealing a stronger urge for Westernization and modernization than the lower castes who have had the least stake in the old order. This is just the opposite of what we have been led to expect on the basis of classical accounts of modernization. The process of Westernization need not be regarded as an irony, but is an important dimension of the total process of mobility and change in the Indian society. India presents one of the oldest, continuous and uninterrupted living civilizations in the whole world, known as Hinduism. One of the prominent features of Indian civilization is its caste system. Caste system is a unique way of social stratification. It has been conceptualized, originated and practiced exclusively in India. It has given a distinguished identity to the Indian society. We will also discuss whether Westernization is a boon or a bane for us. The topic Westernization might be known to all. We will learn the inner aspects of Westernization and equality between Westernization and Sanskritization, and why is it so important to learn about Sanskritization and Westernization. So, students, let us together learn about Sanskritization and Westernization. Sanskritization. To start with, let me ask you one simple question. Do you know the meaning of the word Sanskritization? Well, Sanskritization is the process by which a low caste or tribe or any other group takes over the customs, rituals, ideology, beliefs and life cycle of a higher caste. Can you guess who coined this term? Yes, the term was coined by M.N. Srinivas in his studies on Coorgs in India. It can be also defined as the process of cultural mobility in traditional rural India. Let us now learn about the changes adopted by the lower caste as a part of Sanskritization. The first change is freedom to choose one's own life partner. In earlier times, as we all know, one's partner was chosen by the elders in the family. But the reign of Sanskritization paved way for an individual to choose their own life partner. The second significant change was the change in family structure. Can you guess what was the change adopted? Yes, you're right. The joint family concept was disintegrated. Nuclear family concept emerged. The third significant change was monogamy. According to this, stronger authority was given to the father. Can you imagine, according to this change, a father can outcast the member from his family? Monogamy also disintegrated the caste system. Authority was based on power of one's achievement. This was a major relief to the people. The fourth change was in terms of food habits. Consumption of liquor and beef and pork eating was outlawed. Consumption of liquor was considered as an offense. As we all know, cow is a sacred animal. So, consumption of beef was outlawed. Another good change was acquisition of higher education. You and I are able to learn today. It's because of this change. Every boy and girl was given the right to acknowledge, and the administration was requested to give special consideration in terms of education. Another significant change was the change in religious practices. Do you think sacrificing animals was a good practice? No, it wasn't. The change brought good impact, which stopped all ritualistic sacrifices. This change brought about new way of looking at spiritual life. All forces of nature must be respected. Sanskritization prevailed among the people during the post-independence period. It was a social mobility process from lower caste to the higher caste. When did the process of Sanskritization start? It started even before the advent of the Europeans, but during then it was slow and gradual. Let us consider an example. We all know occupation dhobi, nai, kumbhas were jobs meant for some caste. It is said in the traditional way there is no way one caste people undertake the job of the other caste. They are not allowed to do so. Such persons move away from those places. The effect of Sanskritization increased during the rule of the British. Let us now see how Sanskritization affected the change in lifestyle. To demonstrate this, we can take one example. Let us take two classes of people in the societies, the tribal and the upper class. The tribal were ecologically isolated. As we all know, the tribal people had their own tradition, habits, customs and ways of life. But some social forces were working to make the lower caste people better off like the upper caste. Some of the examples are Bhumji of Eastern India, the Rajgaunt in Central India and Patelia in Western India. Do you know one of the greatest achievements of Sanskritization? It is the uplifting of dignity of women in the social hierarchy. This was really one of the greatest achievements. Factors influence the growth of Sanskritization. Now, let us have a look upon the factors that influence the growth of Sanskritization. After independence of our country, the issue of Sanskritization, also social mobility, has become more complex. Nowadays, as you know, to support lower caste people, the government adopted a policy of positive discrimination. According to this, occupation was provided to lower caste as compulsory. Do you know some of them who claim to be lower caste just to get concession from the government? Strange. The main factors of Sanskritization are socio-cultural reformation and rejection. Let's have a look on socio-cultural reformation. To start, let us not analyze Sanskritization, but better to know the difference between culture of lower caste and higher caste. Let's go back to the origin of the castes. The lower caste people were considered as Shudras, and all the other categories belonged to the high caste. The Varna theory, as well as all knows, was based on the occupation each person will follow. So, if any Shudra read the Shastra, they can also become a Brahmin. So, this was followed by the lower caste people. They changed their occupation and followed the occupation of the higher caste. Another major factor of Sanskritization is religious adoption. As we all know, in times the lower caste people were not allowed to perform any religious practices. They were not allowed to enter any religious premises. Then during later medieval period, lower caste people came to know that they also had right for worship. So, the lower caste people formed their own worshipping style. This was opposed by the higher caste people. Urbanization also helped this process. But how? When the lower caste moved to cities where the caste system was not prominent, they were able to worship and enter religious places. The lower caste people were living mixed with higher caste. How did modern technology help? Well, many religious TV channels evolved in early 1990. Those channels have greater effects like fasting, wearing various bangles according to month, etc. Another main factor hastened Sanskritization is the ritual adoption. Let's start with Brata Bandha. Does anybody know what does it mean by Brata Bandha? No, right? Let me tell you. It is a ritual in the life of a Hindu which makes him a real Brahmin. It is a ritual where sacred thread is given to be worn to prove them as a true Brahmin. Nowadays, even the lower caste people near Pokhara has been performing this ritual, but it is considered punishable if anybody other than the Brahmin wears it. But the Palits in Pokhara perform this ritual not only to attain upper class, but also as a symbol of manhood. The second aspect of ritual adoption is arranged and temple marriage. The value of marriage has increased among the lower caste from past many years. They gave priority to the marriage ceremony, as we already learned that an individual can select his own life partner. Most of the lower caste marriages are held in temple nowadays. It is not a big thing as of now, but earlier it was uncommon. The next factor is rejection. The rejection was based on food, traditional occupation, caste-based discriminations. Let us start with rejection of food. Consumption of liquor and beef and pork eating was outlawed. Consumption of liquor was considered as an offense. As we all know, cow is a sacred animal, so consumption of beef was outlawed. Now let us look upon the rejection's traditional occupations. As we have already stated, the lower caste people moved away from the traditional occupation that elders followed. They opted for newer higher caste occupations. Now coming to rejection of caste-based discrimination, do you know the meaning of untouchability? Well, in earlier days, the lower caste people were considered as untouchables. The higher caste people considered a purity right if they ever touched a lower caste person. But all these customs were rejected. And nowadays, it is considered as an offense to practice such an act. Another factor is Varna system was removed, position to lower caste, pilgrimage, migration from old to new tradition, secular approach to all caste, urbanization, bhakti movement. Sanskritisation is not distinctive. Was Sanskritisation distinctive enough? The claim the lower caste people had to move upper caste was not only Sanskritisation. There were many other factors like westernization, urbanization, etc., etc. Economic grounds are insufficient what is happening in higher caste jobs and lower caste jobs. Through Sanskritisation, that is by rituals, changing customs, ideology and way of life towards upper castes people belonging to a particular caste claim an upper status on the caste hierarchy. This was mostly granted by other. The king was the main head to give the final verdict. Sometimes there was violence to get what they have asked for. M.N. Srinivas maintained that Sanskritisation, however, led only to positional and social change, but not structural change. This means it won't affect the Hindu belief of the caste hierarchy. Hindu people have relative place in hierarchy of people in India. Srinivas agrees that the only source of social mobility in Hindu society was Sanskritisation. Initially, he observed that Sanskritisation means in imitating the lifestyles of Brahmins. In his later works, he was sure that there were several models of Sanskritisation. Do you know what these models are? They are Brahmin model, the Kshatriya model, Vaishya model and Shudra's model. Thus, Brahmin model was only one of them. What process hastened the Sanskritisation? They were mostly the dominant model or the Brahmin model. At some places, the tribal groups were dominant, the other groups followed the tribal customs, and thus one can also speak of a tribal model of Sanskritisation, which is called as tribalization. The following example shows the process. Imagine that a lower caste or an untouchable group decides to enter the hierarchical society. By collecting power, they can enter the hierarchy at the level of Kshatriyas. Can you guess what have happened? The lower caste or untouchable groups acquire the Kshatriya status. Ritual ranking is influenced by secular power. The effect of Sanskritisation was not working so much after that. Now coming to the shortcoming of Sanskritisation. This concept of social change had number of shortcomings. It cannot be used in larger perspective. This is due to the contextual process of Sanskritisation. There were even reports that higher class people have been found imitating the tribal ways called tribalization. So, this shows that Sanskritization wasn't distinctive enough. Westernization, a necessity to understand the socio-cultural changes in the society. The role of Westernization has played an important role. As we all know, one of the main criteria to the introduction to Western culture was the British rule in India. The British helped in Westernization by bringing new technology, knowledge, values and beliefs. These factors helped a lot in social mobility among various individuals. M.N. Srinivas, who coined the term Sanskritization, said about Westernization that the changes that occurred in the Indian society and culture due to Western contact. Now, let us define the term Westernization. What is Westernization? According to M.N. Srinivas, Westernization is the change and effect of the British rule which prevailed in India for around 150 years. These changes were noticed in various levels of institutions, values, technology and ideologies. All the technological changes, political changes, rise of nationalism and establishment of various institutions were considered as the byproducts of Westernization. Westernization, in short, is an impact of the British rule. Now, let us look upon some features of Westernization. First, let us compare Westernization with Sanskritization. Westernization is a simple concept when compared to Sanskritization. It is made clear that Westernization is the impact of Western contact during the British rule. It mainly focuses on the change of cultural and society of India. The second feature is Westernization has some certain value preferences. To elaborate, let us see an example. Earlier, there were evil practices like child marriages, forbidden widow remarriage, intercaste marriages, etc. During the British rule, these practices were totally reformed. So, due to Westernization, our society was socially reformed. Westernization focused mainly on humanitarian ground. Let us see the third feature. The third feature of Westernization is the introduction of various institutions. For example, the British brought with them many missionaries. These missionaries were engaged in providing shelter, food and educational purposes. Many educational institutions still prevail in India, which was started during the British reign. Do you know the speciality of British institutions? There was no caste rule. Anybody who is interested in gaining knowledge was encouraged by these institutions. Other institutions like civil, army and law was equally affected and transformed. The fourth feature is that though Westernization brought many changes to India, we chose to take few changes. The changes that questioned our culture and tradition were omitted. British people lacked family values, but India is still rich in our family values. Now, let us see the fifth feature. Westernization was introduced not to stop Sanskritization, but to enrich it in the right way. It did not retard the process of Sanskritization. The sixth feature of Westernization is that it is more objective than Sanskritization, whereas the latter is subjective. So, students, that was the 6 main features of Westernization. There is no doubt that Westernization has helped us to become self-independent and powerful. But that does not mean we will forget everything and blindly follow it. We have a rich tradition and culture, and we will preserve it and not tarnish just because we want a westernized lifestyle. We should be proud to be an Indian and its rich culture. Illusion of equality. Now, let us see whether Sanskritization and Westernization are actually equal, or is it just an illusion? Many scholars talk about the twin concept of Westernization and Sanskritization. So, is there any base in it? Let us see. So, as already said, both Westernization and Sanskritization were involved in changing the social and cultural norms of India. So, since Sanskritization evolved first, we can say that Westernization is an agent of Sanskritization. The process of Sanskritization was social mobility of lower caste people to higher caste people. There is a similarity in this case to Westernization. Can you point out the similarity? Yes. In Westernization, the people moved towards a much better life. There was even a saying that Brahmins have become more Westernized and other castes have become more Sanskritized. Westernization has influenced the socio-culture of India a lot. Due to Westernization, the caste system in India has become more secular. Scholars have mostly validated the process of Sanskritization on the basis of empirical studies. Do you know what observation scholars made? When the upper class were westernizing their lifestyle, the lower class was Sanskritizing their beliefs and way of life. There arose some criticism against Westernization. We shall recall them one by one. First, Westernization was able to bring change in social problems, but was not able to bring about change in structural terms. The second criticism was that Westernization was not applicable to all societies. Westernization was only applicable in some cases. The third criticism was that Sanskritization concept was more complex and heterogeneous. But Westernization was considered simple reform, which cannot be assumed as an inevitable change. The fourth criticism was that Westernization was supposed to be ethically neutral, but it wasn't. This was because Westernization had certain value preferences, humanitarianism, secularism, etc. These were famous criticisms made against Westernization. M.N. Srinivas expressed that both Sanskritization and Westernization was more or less same. They were progressing together. As we all know, Westernization improved the field of communication and technology. It is to be noted that Westernization hastened the process of Sanskritization. This was done through religious methods, communal congregation and caste. Higher castes opted to live the lifestyle of Western people. The lower caste people who aspired to have higher status earned it through Sanskritization. A point to be noted is that when the lower caste people attained the high status through Sanskritization, the higher class people have already moved to much higher status by adopting Westernization. But a rapid change is occurring now, as even the lower caste people are moving towards Westernization. The beginning of the session, we learned the concept of Sanskritization. We had looked about the changes that happened due to the introduction of Sanskritization. In the second topic of the session, we learned about factors that hastened the process of Sanskritization. The factors were social reformation and rejection. Under social reformation, we learned about the religious and ritual adoptions. Under rejection, we saw caste-based, food-based and tradition occupation rejections. In the third section, we discussed about why Sanskritization is not distinctive enough. We had also outlined why Sanskritization was overcome by a new agent Westernization. And in the fourth section, we did discuss about Westernization. We outlined the features of Westernization. We stated that Westernization is more of an objective process rather than a subjective process. The last section, we discussed about the equality of Sanskritization and Westernization. We concluded that both were having only few differences between them. Westernization hastened the process of Sanskritization. Hope you have learnt about the topic and have a clear picture of it. Hope you had an interesting session. Thank you.